Just make sure we're working here. Testing. Oh, yeah, testing. That's working. That's working. We are. We're rolling with gas. We'll just call it that. We are live. We are doing this. Welcome to the second. I won't say annual because it's only been 9 days or so. So anyway, live. Dan answers the questions which cannot be answered by any human. Thankfully, I'm not actually human, so I've got to step up and I can answer these. It's not going to be easy, but I'm aided with the unofficial, very unofficial sponsor, which is Founders Kentucky Breakfast Stout. This is definitely going to help. And my good friend Jack, who will, I'm sure, make his presence known throughout the night. But besides that, it's just me, the cranial area, the whatever this is, I don't know. And if you're new to the channel, if you're new to this, we are, and when I say we, I'm talking about me, but it's with all the knowledge I've gotten pertained that's come into me from the world so far. So I guess I should say we, because what's in here, it's not just me, it's we. I am legions. I am woman, hear me roar. I sound my barbaric. Anyway, so what we do here is we answer questions that some of the smartest and most interesting people from all different types of fields pose as their last question. So a gentleman by the name of John Brockman, who curates the edge.org website, asked a bunch of painters and poets and philosophers and AI researchers and biologists and psychologists and psychiatrists and botanists and climatologists and, oh, maybe not a climatologist. I don't know. We'll have to check. Anyway, 274 people. And he's been asking a group of those like-minded people like that a question for 20 years. And for his last year, which was 2018, he asked the question, the penultimate question, what is the last question? And, well, that's kind of interesting. So I came across that a few months ago, maybe about 8 months ago or something like that. And I decided, wow, that's kind of interesting. And I thought, what would my last question be? And then I thought, hey, come on. Let's be creative. Why don't I just answer all of these? Why not? So, hey, it wouldn't be easy to do, but with, a little bit of beer and a little bit of courage and a little bit of slipperiness of terms and things like that, I have been able to answer. We're in the, I'm going to go like this. We're in the ends now. So if I do the math, I'm going to say I'm about, 63 or 64% of the way through this. And I say this with all humility, but every single answer I've answered completely, correctly. It's been a humbling experience. I have a vast amount of humility. My humility is infinite. Anyway, I've answered a lot of these already, and it's just enjoyable to make the mind think and make the mind stretch. So if you want to follow along with me and see where your mind goes, where at the same time as where my mind goes, let's have at it. So this should be interesting. If anybody comes online, which I don't think anybody's going to come online because I'm not promoting this, I'm not marketing it. I'm going to be the Marcel Proust of the internet era. Nobody's going to know about me. Anyway, if anybody does, it's going to be the most amazing thing ever. But either way, let's just start this off. And we left off at, and I'm going to do this because part of me is John Naughton. John Naughton is Senior Research Fellow
at the Center for Research in the Arts, Social Sciences, and Humanities at the University of Cambridge.
Excellent hockey team.
Director at the Wilson College Press Fellowship Program. And columnist at The Observer.
Excellent hockey team.
And author of From Gutenberg to Zuckerberg, which is a little bit interesting because I've been thinking of a lot of the parallels between the printing press and the kind of the chaos, the cultural, the you know, if the maybe the printing press didn't maybe start the Enlightenment, and the real scientific endeavor, but if it didn't start it, if it wasn't birthed there, then it was given a frickin' shot of adrenaline and whatever the heck else you want there, because the printing press just ushered in a whole new cultural level of information sharing, and it's like the collective nervous system came online a little bit with the printing press. Now it's frickin', now the sensitivities, since everything's gone way up, so our sensitivity is like, just like, oh, everything hurts because everything's crazy. But anyway, looking at what's going on in 2020 through the lens of what was going on along the time of the invention of the printing press and the rolling out of the printing press and all that kind of stuff. Interesting lens to view our current situation. I'm always nervous that I love the historians. I just wonder, are we in kind of uncharted territories in a way as we're leaving? It seems like a lot of the pulls and pressures that we're having are becoming less and less rooted to our biological selves and our biological selves. I mean, obviously that's still there, but I don't know. How much can history be our guide? It's an interesting question. Because you'll probably think that will be a moment, or there'll be things which history won't be any guide. We're just like, yeah, we can look back 300 years, but no, there's no parallel. There's no knowledge to be drawn from the past that is going to help us in this particular moment that we're in right now. I'm not saying we're in that moment right now. I'm just saying, if we live in a world of infinities, then that condition has to occur an infinite amount of time. So we should probably be thinking about it. I don't know. Anyway, back to the question. John Naughton's last question is, why do humans who possess or acquire unaccountable power over others invariably abuse it? John. Well, you do kind of answer the question inside the question, don't you, when you say unaccountable? If it's unaccountable, I mean, if you're not in a position where the behavior that you take matters, then it's going to be almost like a random function that, yes, it will, the behavior will be such to use that power for evil. That's one way to go at it. Is just like if you answer the question in such a way that, like, if you're not accountable, if you can just do what you want and it's not really going to change any anything for you anyway, then your behavior will be just a reflection of your character and of what you've been, before you got that power. And although huh, I just thought of a argument for kings in the the like the monarchy system as opposed to democracy is that, in democracy, people are elected, of course, and they so the people have a say. The people have a say in who's elected, and we can argue about how true that really is or not. But at least in theory, the people get the voice. They vote the person in who is supposed to represent them, and all that kind of stuff. But here's a little twist on that, and it goes to John's question here, or it's parallel. They're choosing from a list of people who are basically all hungry for power. They all want that power. They all have the hubris and the vanity to be like, yes, I'm going to ascend to that level of power over others. I'm sure that there are, and I'm sure there have been, and hey, George Washington. There have been many that have used that power very well, but you almost by definition, when you set that system up, you are setting up a system where it's going to be people that are desirous of the power, and I'm not sure that that's the people that you want. And so if you've got like if you've got a hereditary monarchy or something like that, you get a lot of people that they're born into it, so they don't, so the drive for power, which can be maybe a negative thing, isn't necessarily in that because it's just there. So it's the systems are selecting for different types of people, and in the, I guess, in the monarchical system, it's not even selecting really. It's just there. But anyway, it's a thought. Anyway, back to the more direct question. Why do humans who possess or acquire unaccountable power over others invariably abuse it? Well, I hate to get too philosophical about this, but what is abuse and who counts abuse? How do you decide what abuse is? I mean, we can draw some, I guess, hard lines around that, right? Like, okay, if you just decide to just genocide your people, that would be abuse. Or if you decide to use your people to just genocide another group of people, we could even, you know what? Here's how hard this could be. Even as bad as that sounds, how do you measure abuse? What if there was by all, the way it looked at the time, there was an inevitable war that was coming that was going to wipe the people out, and if Henry the Fourth or whatever doesn't do what he does, everybody, it's really difficult to call something abuse. There's so many value judgments in that, and what's your metric? Because is your metric just, do more people live? In of the people that you have power for, do they live? Do they not live? It's actually a very difficult question to understand what you mean by abusing that power. You have to build in so many, so much morality that we would think we all share, and of course we all share. I mean, I would think that now and throughout most of humanity, if you ask a human a question along the lines of, do you want other humans to live happier and more successful lives? People would say, yeah. And I think people do feel that way. I mean, you have to kind of be a monster to not, feel that way. I mean, if you're thinking about the world as just like a zero sum game, then then there are times where you'll feel like, well, if I don't take it, then they're going to get it, or if I've got to take it before they get it. So if you view the world as a zero sum game, you are setting yourself up to be more us versus them, more I got to take mine, I got to get mine. And so, as another little aside, I look at kind of like ideologies and activist groups, and kind of like one of my tests is if I can see if they're looking at the world as a zero sum game or as a non-zero sum. Is the pie fixed and they're trying to grab theirs, or are they trying to create a better future and a more open future for everybody? Because I think the latter brings out the better in people. I think it's probably more true to how we are, at least in a lot of ways. And so anyway, that was another aside. Back to the question at hand. We were talking about what is abuse. It's very hard to I mean, what, Genghis Khan, how many people did he kill and just decimate the whole place? But then like a third of the Asian people in the world are related to Genghis Khan or something like that. I know the numbers are wrong, but you get the point. It's like, it's not easy to define abuse. Also, we can look at it like, okay, so and this is going back to my previous point, if these humans have acquired unaccountable power, they had to go through a lot to get to the position where they acquired that kind of power. So that drive has to be like the strongest thing in them, or an incredible strong thing in them. So if that drive has to be stronger than the drive to be good, or the drive to whatever, it's got to be every other drive, instinct, whatever, in a person that acquires unaccountable power through their own tyranny of will or what have you. The drive to acquire power is the most important thing that they have. So then any other drives are secondary to that. So that, you know, so then it's a crapshoot. It's a mortal crapshoot, and they're just like, because the thing that got them to the top of the hill, you know, I would almost guess that, I guess part of it goes back to people trying to acquire power for an ideology's sake, for just their clan's sake, just a tribalism sake. I don't know. I don't think most people are just trying to like, oh, I got to climb up this, I got to grab all the power I can get so I can cure cancer. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it works that way. I mean, I think I think power, when it's used well, is often to the system that grants the power. Probably. So we should be thinking about the systems that we're creating, political systems, economic systems, cultural systems, how actors in that those systems get power. And so we should be thinking about designing better systems, playing better games, is the answer to the question you didn't ask, which is how do we get people to use that power better and abuse it less? What else do we got here? Why do humans who possess or acquire uncoupled power? I think I've named a couple of reasons already. I've dotted the T's and crossed the I's on that. What else? Here's another thought. John, you say that others invariably abuse it. Well, here would be another thought, is that maybe it's not invariably abused, and that word invariably is has a meaning of not variably, meaning happens all the time. But I think it has a colloquial meaning of just like it happens often. Anyway, maybe we just noticed when it's abused, because that's what sticks out, and that when power is used properly, we don't notice it. It blends into the background. It's the ether, and so maybe the goal is to have like governmental systems and systems of power that we just don't notice, because then we know they can't be we're not being abused too much, because we don't notice it. It's hard to be abused if you don't care. So that might be one metric of whether or not we've got a system set up well. It's like, do we notice it? We don't? Okay, we're good. Maybe invariably is just, it's in the background until it happens, and then we call it all the time because, the rest of the time we were just breathing and didn't notice it, and didn't notice that. Also, you just think about it. Just think of any population. You've got a population. You got one guy that rises to the top. He's got the ability to, or woman, or porpoise. A porpoise with a purpose. They rise to the top, and they do 19 good things in a row, and everybody's happy. And then you do the 20th thing, and people are mad, and they call it abuse, and they call it, it's invariably everyone. I guess to not abuse something would be a feat of immense perfection. I mean, I don't even know how you would conceive of a human being having power over other humans in which you couldn't see that they would be abusing it, like, because basically you're saying humans that acquire some type of like godlike powers, like, okay, so maybe they can't make it rain and stuff like that. But in terms of like having power over other humans, they've got every bit of power. It's all in them. That power in and of itself becomes the, how do I explain this? Use your words, Dan. The more power you have, the more potential you have to abuse it. I mean, straightforward, right? So it's like the more power you have, if you can, control three people's, time cards and tell them what they have to do and stuff. But now it's 3 million, and you control everything that they can do and stuff like that. Your ability to abuse just goes up exponentially with the power in and of itself. And so then the ability to not abuse becomes exponentially harder, because you've got to, with all of this power, you have to somehow marshal it and use it in a way. Because think of it this way: maybe you're laissez-faire and you're just like, I'm just going to let the people do what they do. That's going to be called abuse too, because you had the chance to save people from blah A, B, and C, and D, and you did nothing. So it's like, if it's similar to asking a question of like, if you believe in an all powerful God, and then you look at all of the things that are wrong. It's like, how would you believe that? Because like an all powerful God, this question was said in good interest, but I think that it points to it's pointing me at least to kind of a utopian scenario when there just isn't. I just don't think. I think that it is unrealistic in our human condition to think that there could be someone with a tremendous amount of power that could somehow wield that in the exact way that all of the subjects would just be like, yeah, he did good. He didn't screw us over. He took care of us. I think that would be impossible, honestly. How do we get better? Let's ask the next question. Like, what can we do to ameliorate this situation, at least by gradations? One thing, of course, is to not give unaccountable power to others, because if the ability to abuse rises proportionally to the amount of power, let's keep that amount of power limited. Maybe the office of the President of the United States, we should be limiting that power, returning a little bit more of it to the Congress, and maybe putting some checks and balances on all those executive orders and stuff like that. The thought. I am thinking that political systems, economic systems, tend to work better when power is localized, or at least more localized. If you've got systems that are just, very top down, very centralized, I don't think those tend to work as well, and I think they tend to be more rife for abuse if you've got If you've got the people, the agents, whatever, at a more local level where they're going to be subject to people's voices locally and also maybe even be subject to the effects of their own policies or their own uses and misuses of power. If you've got a system that's set up more like that, that probably minimalizes, at least to some extent, the ability and the likelihood of the abuse of power. What else does Founders tell me? I mean, obviously, the question also speaks to the, you know, you should not give people you should have term limits on power. Just put it that way. Should be the way we do things. What flew through my head? The old phrase of power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, or whatever it is. I mean, yeah. Also, I think seems like as you rise, like a hierarchy, any type of hierarchy. And I guess I'm kind of saying in a different way what I kind of started off the situation as before, but I'm thinking very visually. But it's like if you rise a hierarchy, it becomes about rising up on the hierarchy, and that's the thing. And does does that go away once you've reached the top of you reach the top of the hierarchy of whatever it is, but you've still got that drive. So what happens to that drive? Because I don't think it just goes away. I mean, that's not what happens with humans. If they've got this drive to just boom, 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 or whatever, if they're acquiring it, you get to the top, and it's just like, okay, now what? You know, you know, I can't just. What am I gonna do? Just get my hammock out and read my Proust. No, you're gonna do something with that energy, that fire, that whatever, and who knows where it's gonna go. Anyway, the answer to your question, John Naughton, is who are you to define what abuse is? That's not an easy one to define. Who are you to say invariably? Maybe it melds into the background and we just notice it when we notice it. Maybe power is being used 99.6% of the time in the universe or on planet Earth in an unabused way, and we just are aware. It just, it's in the ether unless we're aware of it. Then it's like, oh, that's bullshit. And yeah, that's what I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna call that my answer. So thank you, John Naughton, for that interesting question. And let's see if we got another one in us. 1 second here. All right, does that fit? Oh, there we go. Look at that. Shit's amazing. We've got another question here. This question is, whoops. See if that works. Okay, there we go. This is amazing. This question is from Randolph, and I'm going to say Ness, like Loch Ness, like Elliot Ness, or it could be Nessie, like, oop, I made a Nessie in my pants. I don't know. I'm going to say Randolph Ness, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, Randolph. But I will say Randolph, and I'll say it again, Randolph. Randolph's the professor of life sciences and the director at the Center for Evolution and Medicine at Arizona State University. I wonder if he is, isn't Lawrence Krauss there as well? Anyway, and the co-author with George C. Williams, ooh, that could be interesting, of Why We Get Sick. George C. Williams is, I believe, like an evolutionary a biologist, but I think he's really into the math of it, genetics and the math of it, because it is, the math of it is the thing. It's the math of it is there. Even when you're talking about behavioral strategies and stuff like that, it's positively overflowing with math. Anyway, Randolph's last question is: in what situations does the capacity for low mood give selective advantage? Ooh. Cats and kittens. I've done about 170 without a wrong answer yet. Is this going to get me? I hope not. I had a couple of thoughts here that are going around my head. One is these are going to be ill-formed, although they'll still be perfect. There could be. So if I'm thinking low mood, I kind of want to think about maybe like something like depression or something like where you got to define low mood. Low mood could be something like depression or it could be sadness, and those are different things. How is he defining low mood? I mean, that's why he didn't say sadness. He said low mood. I'm going to conceptualize low mood as something analogous to like depression, where it's like, okay, the physiological, psychological urge to, or whatever, to just do things to is lowered, almost like a form of cognitive hibernation or something, or not quite that level, but I'm going to define it that way for the purposes of this. Well, there's a couple of things right there. There could be just times when it could be times where doing something is the wrong thing. So a pressure that gets put to say don't do nothing. Just stay here, hunker down. Don't even think about things because the right thing to do is nothing right now. That's possible. Sounds weird. Sounds like, you know, why would you want to do that? You always want to progress. You want to do stuff. Maybe there's also times where is it possible that the brain is kind of like self-regulating and it sees that if the if it was running at a different level or if it was running at a let's go do this, it kind of sees that it's not in a good. It's kind of self-referential, but it's like looking at it's like I'm not in tune right now, so let's just throttle down. Because if you try and go full bore at whatever it is, you're you're going to damage yourself more than if you just clamp down and just don't do anything. I mean, selective advantage obviously is an evolutionary concept where it's just like it's going to lead to more offspring in some ways. What else? I mean, those could be actual reasons. I mean, you could view low mood as, in some ways, almost synonymous with a kind of cognitive conservatism. Nothing more to learn here, nothing more to discover. Stay where I'm at. There can be times when that's actually the right call. The other, another way to answer that, of course, is that it's not low mood itself, but it is low mood. The low mood is riding on something else, which has a selective advantage, and one of its consequences or one of its correlates is low mood. But that has that, but it's so it's low mood actually might be a slight minus, but it's riding on the back of something that gives a big advantage. So we have to understand what else is part of a bundle that low mood works on, or something like that. That's another way to obviously conceptualize it. Could we conceptualize it kind of like how you have your normal temperature and it's like a homeostatic thing? You've got so you're at 98.6 or whatever the heck it is usually, but then every once in a while you're at 103 or you're at whatever. Could we metaphorically say that low mood is like having a fever or something like that, where this kind of relates to what I was saying 2 minutes ago, but think about it Metaphorically, it's like low mood may be fighting off something that's that the low mood is the symptom of. So it's the fever to counteract the virus because it's trying to kill off the virus. So it's got to change the system to kill the whatever. So is low mood trying to downregulate mimetic infestation. Low mood may also just be telling us in a very bodily way or something that there's something wrong in our body that isn't easy to be expressed. If you've got a broken leg, you know you got a broken leg because it hurts like shit, and you feel the pain right there. If you've got an unhealthy spleen, I don't know. Could that be could low mood be a type of like somatic or could it be a signaling something from something that doesn't have say it's not really hooked up to the nervous system, but there's some other kind of proto nervous system that's just working its way up to the brain to say, ah, something not right. It's like it's like a muddled language, a muddled bodily language, but it's just saying, something not right. You should do something, but because we don't know how to interpret it because it's so low resolution, we just see it as just like, just down, when it's change the damn air filter, you idiot. That's why you're depressed. You need to change the air filter. Of course, my my ideas, if they're to be of any value, need to be testable. And it's very difficult to test. Like, let's find everybody that's depressed and then check all of their, or in low mood, check all of their functional systems and see if there's any discrepancy between those that do not consider themselves in low mood and those that do. And then, it's in theory quite testable. It just would be very difficult. But let's think of other metaphors. Are there other metaphors? What about playing dead? And animals that play dead. I'm not quite sure if this is a good metaphor, but animals that play dead, they play dead because they're trying to avoid predators that are looking for live animals. Is there a metaphor there? The system kind of played dead. I don't know if I'm going anywhere with that. Let's think about it socially. I've been thinking about it just, low mood will tend to manifest itself socially as well, right? So you got to think about the social and communicative aspects that will accompany low mood. I mean, there can be times when you can be hanging out with someone and there's, you know, part of you just thinks it great, but you do get in a worse mood for some reason or whatever. So is it possible that there's something that your one level of your brain can't tell you, but another level of your brain is saying this isn't right? You know? So there's social aspects to it of just like, there's something in your subconscious saying something about this social dynamic isn't right. So extricate yourself, do whatever. I feel like it's like a low level kind of phenotypic physiological communication that is like it's like the nervous system equivalent of the difference between full stereoscopic, three cone vision and just like a basic just cone or whatever that all it does is just it just either detects light or dark, and that's all you get. And it's just like the low mood is it's a very it's a low level language that just has so low resolution. It's just like light or dark, good, bad, and it's just kind of like a signaling mechanism, and it's I think about it as like an aspect of consciousness that's just at another, you know, it's lower on the stack. It's more towards the basement. Um, anyway, so Randolph, in what situations does the capacity for low mood give a selective advantage? I think I gave several reasons. Some of them testable. Mm, some of them lovely metaphors. Can't test a metaphor. What would it be there for? So, thank you for that question. That was very interesting. I was concerned for a moment that this might be the question that tripped me up, but I was able to, again, in great humility, ever increasing humility, answer this one completely correctly. Dotted the I's, crossed the T's. Your humble servant. Thank you. Next question. Magic. You see that? Richard Nisbet. And Richard is the Theodore M. Newcomb Distinguished University Professor of Psychology at the University of Michigan. The football team has sucked for a long time. Anyway, big Michigan fan. The big house. Best breakfast I ever had was at a parking lot a quarter mile from Michigan Stadium in my youth. After a night of hard partying, the best thing in the world was one of those big old cans of Guinness with a widget in them. Because I had the worst stomach, and man, that felt me. And then the bacon and eggs and potatoes came about a half an hour later. But anywho, that was a Michigan-Ohio State game, I'm pretty sure. Hey, Hannah. Anyway, Richard Nisbet's last question is, what does the conscious mind do that is impossible for the unconscious mind? The quick answer that's coming to me just without even thinking is conceptualizing. It's almost definitional the way I'm thinking about it from this aspect, but it's almost just like, okay, the conscious mind coordinates and integrates the output of the unconscious mind. So it's taking all the stuff from the unconscious mind and synthesizing that and creating, views of reality and all this kind of stuff. So it's basically just taking, it's like almost input output. It's just like a model like that. It's like, unconscious mind fills all this crap, and whatever gets taken up by the conscious mind and synthesized and reintegrated and all this kind of stuff to create our model of reality system or whatever. So it's almost just like a input output thing. That's too easy. I've already answered this fully, completely, and correctly. This is just bonus. Anything on top of here is bonus. Well, man, how do you even tear apart? How do you even differentiate conscious and unconscious? Okay, so if you take, you go under the needle or whatever, and they give the anesthesia, or whatever. Everything's still functioning, but you have no consciousness, right? So let's think about it from that perspective. All your bodily stuff is still functioning. That just reminds me, as a very quick aside there, I remember 6-7 years ago, something like that, I had an operation, and it was a kidney stone. Those don't get them. I would not advise that if you're looking to get elective problems, medical problems. I would not advise kidney stones. Anyway, they were doing this procedure where they take these ultra low, basically sound waves, and they basically, well, they're variable, but anyway, they basically take this thing that has these sound waves, and they just kind of like, and they direct it, and it actually kind of breaks them up. But anyway, they put you under anesthesia to do that, and so they put, and this is the second time it happened. The first time I had it happen, or I had this type of procedure, I was like 24, 25 or something like that. And then I happened again about 10 years later or something like that. Anyway, drink lots of water. Don't eat chili. Anyway. So anyway, I am undergoing this procedure, and towards the end, I'm like, they put me under, and then towards the end, I'm like, okay, I'm here, and I'm talking to them. I'm like, hey guys, like, I'm here, and I can kind of feel what you're doing, and they're like, well, we're almost done, and it was just a weird thing, because it's just like, I mean, they didn't have me surgically opened up, but they were really kind of like this thing. And it's just like, man, I can feel this very, very kind of weird, painful, like really right in my body, doing kind of like crazy stuff. And but I wasn't totally there either. I was kind of like in this weird plane where I was like, okay, this is not good. This probably hurts more than I think it does, or whatever, you know. It probably, but it was just like doing something where it's like, this is. I'm not sure I want to be awake for this. And the first time they did it, I was just out. I said, "Dope me up like a 300-pound lineman," and I don't remember anything. But this time, I'm like three-quarters of the way through the surgery or through the thing. I'm just like, I'm not totally out. I'm not sure how good this is. Anywho, back to the question. We already talked about the input output metaphor. Um, it's not. Does the unconscious mind okay, you're out. Your all your systems are still working. Your heart's still beating. Your blah blah blah. Your brain is still going. I'm just trying to define the state of unconscious. All of your stuff is still working. You you're you're in like a rest state. You're not really able to pursue goals though, right? You're not able to. Well, okay, this goes back to my thought of what is consciousness, because they're kind of the same question. And I kind of answered this question before, where I was saying that at least an aspect of consciousness is the ability to be self-referential. And I, it almost sounds like that's not an, it's not a definition, but it's just like, if you can, you have a mental representation of yourself. So the extent to which something is conscious, I think, at least in part, is the extent to which an agent is able to model itself and put itself in a model of reality. I think that is a very key part of what we would call consciousness. And unconscious mind doesn't do that, right? Unconscious mind doesn't model the self, doesn't the conscious mind creates me. The unconscious mind doesn't have the concept of me. That makes me think about mirror experiments and the fact that, like, you know, at least last I heard or whatever, like, it's like dogs don't really recognize themselves in the mirror. They always think it's some other dog or something, but you know, chimpanzees or others can. What does that say about a concept of me, of what there's a great apes, chimpanzees, whatever, have the ability to conceptualize me, myself, in an environment where dogs don't have that. feel like I've just... my answer to the question is so elementary that it's almost restating the question. But then maybe... I think that's it. I think that's the answer. Conscious mind can do me. Conscious mind does the magic trick of me. The unconscious mind cannot do the magic trick of me. I'm sure there's a lot of subcomponents to how you create me. I'm not going to give all of those to you. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I don't want to have to write everything down. I'll leave you a little bit of homework. But yeah. The answer to your last question, Richard Nesbitt, is of what does the conscious mind do that is impossible for the unconscious mind? The conscious mind creates the me in it. The unconscious mind does not have the ability to coordinate, synthesize, and create a self-referential model, which we call me. So that's the difference. And consciousness allows us to... It gives us an entire... I'll go farther than what you said, but consciousness allows us in that ability to be self-referential, allows to put ourselves in a virtual reality. We put the me in a virtual reality, and then we conceptualize potential actions, potential things, all this kind of stuff. So it's an order of the ability to virtualize and to ask questions, whereas like if you don't have that ability, you're a slave to reality. You're a slave to nature, and a dog. Let's just say the dog that doesn't have the conscious mind. It is completely a slave to instincts, genetics, and socialization, and does not have the ability to incorporate those things along with potentially other components into an arena in which it can use those and then virtually look at other possible... if I did this behavior, what would happen? Dogs can't model. Me is the model. That's the answer. So, thank you very much, Richard Nisbet. And we're on to our next one. Okay. A little more brain liquid here. I know what you're asking. Yes, I could do this completely sober and whatever, but I like a challenge. This next question is from a person to be named later. No, we're going to, I guess, right there. Hopefully that works. This next question is from Tor. Natranders? Natranders? Sounds like Norwegian or something. Tor Natranders, who's a writer, a speaker, a thinker. Copenhagen, Denmark. I was going to say Norway, Denmark. Okay, there you go. And that's a great just tagline. Writer, thinker, speaker. Writer, speaker, thinker. That's just beautiful. You know what? That's what I want. I kind of want to steal that from my CV and just erase everything and just put that. Anyway, Tor's last question is, what is the flow of information through human beings? Wow, you son of a bitch, Tor. Is this one going to get me? 177 straight. I'm determined to get this one. One way to answer that, of course, would be kind of like continually variable, because information only becomes information when there's a conscious agent that can use, let's take a data stream, whatever, pulse, pressure on your feet as you're walking on the hot desert sand. Information arises out of data. Just say that because that's just, I'm in IT. Information arises because there's some agent that can synthesize the data or make sense of the data. So part of the idea back here just could be, well, the flow of the information depends incredibly much on the interlocutor, or the person, the data analyst, that's able to, take, because there's, what is there, 100 trillion things going on right here just in one body. Conceptually, you've got a pulse, you've got cells that are doing this and that, you've got, even if we eliminate the quantum level at all and we just look at quantum or classical effects, you can still say that there's just, even in this fingernail, the cells dividing, and the the electrical stuff that's going through there. How much of that is able to be interpreted, interrogated, what have you, and you're able to glean information out of that. Like that percentage of the potential data that could be turned into information seems like it's rising through time. So one way to think about the flow of information is that it's almost more of a rising tide than a flow, because the amount of whatever is going on is increasing as our abilities to look at microscopes and endocrinomical whatever and this and that. I mean, we're getting more instruments, we're getting more interfaces. That's just like increasing increasing the amount of what we could conceptualize as information, because maybe we'll take information as data that can be acted upon. So a rising informational tide. Sinks all serotonin boats. Anyway, so one way to conceptualize this question is just We're getting more information. We're finding more ways to look at ourselves, but I don't think that's what he's actually going for. Um, well, let's keep this to the things that we we know about or we have evidence to think about, and so let's talk about social communication. Wait a second. Let's not. Because now that I'm looking at the question again, what is the flow of information through human beings? So that makes me think he's talking about intrapersonal, the, excuse me, the intrapersonal informational network. How does that work? What is it? So this flips whatever I was saying before kind of on its head or sweeps it to the side. So you're just talking about let's ignore the fact that information sounds like it needs a conscious agent to interrogate it and just say information residing in the body that coordinates activity that you know that feeds into the unconscious. What is that thing? The question is posed in such a way that you could come at it from a bunch of different angles from that perspective. Or you could just put a name on it and call it the unconscious, and there you go. We've named it. That's all we need to do. That's a little cheap. That's called my unconsciousness of the gaps argument. I mean, at one level, if he's just talking about if Tors, I was just talking about, well, the nervous system, the what is it about it that keeps a kidney being a kidney and doing kidney things? Like, you've got, of course, you've got genetics, which says, okay, this is the library. These are all the classes, you know, in computer speak or whatever, of like how do you build this kind of cell, how to build this cell, and all that stuff. You've got genetics, you've got epigenetics, which says, okay, just read this and this and ignore this part and double underline this part to aid in development and stuff. But even when the body's built, it's still maintained, it's still coordinated, it still communicates. Is there other levels? it's funny. It goes back to the question I was answering earlier about low mood and like what could have an advantage. And low mood could be kind of like a low level language that that whatever is using low mood doesn't integrate better with higher modes of whatever thinking or more accurate description. So it's just kind of a very low resolution. And are there, if that's the case, then that in that type of low resolution information, that needs to propagate itself through systems. Does it still work through the nervous system? I mean, if we're getting information that's not through the nervous system, how the heck is it getting to anything? But then information can't be confined just to the nervous system, because otherwise, you know, ah, it's entropy. We're just fighting entropy. I'm just going to say entropy 1,000 times because I know that there's some relationship between entropy and information and physics. And so if I just say entropy 9 times in a row, it's got to be the right answer somehow. Claude Shannon ordered a bowl of soup with a side of entropy, and that flowed right to his stomach. And I'm reading this again, and I could think that he could really be saying the flow of information through human beings, like like humans are a network, nodes nodes in a network, and the information is flowing between and through the nodes on the network. So the information is really what's you know what's giving what's the giving a picture of reality. If you just kind of conceptualize just a dark universe of dots, which is the humans, and then the way that they get lit up is the way that the information is flowing, and so that actually gives light to an entire its own shape, its own whatever. You conceptualize this question that way. Are we just talking about some analogy to memes and to I think thoughts about networks and the limitations, the adaptations, the structures, the whatever of networks is fundamental importance in understanding a lot of networks, which is becoming more important in everything that we talk about, because networks are becoming more important in everything. Network effects are rising. So I have this other thing too. I can't call it information, but I have this thing that I can do, and I talk to other people, and I don't know. It just they sound weird or whatever. But I have this thing where I can just, and I don't know if any of you guys have this, but I can make it feel like energy is going through my body. It's just a very I can I've been able to do this since when I was like 12 or 13 or something, but it's very just I haven't done it for a long time, but I'm just gonna do it. You won't notice anything unless all the lights go out or something. But anyway, it is. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't even know if that's normal or not, but I can just make it feel like just the only way I can say it is like I could just make it feel like energy is flowing through my body, and I don't know what that is. I should investigate that again. I should try and come to an answer to at least find out if other people have that exact feeling, because it's a very weird feeling. But I can just, and I remember when I was 12 or 13, I was taking martial arts, and I remember being able to feel it for the first time, and it was like just like in my arms a little bit, and I was like, oh, this is weird. And it was like I think when we were meditating or something, I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. How can I do this? Why can I do this? And then later, now it's just I can just make it flow through my whole. I mean, not flow because it's not really a flow as much as it's just like an excitation feeling, but it's just like I mean, I wonder if I can localize it. No, it's hard to localize. It just kind of springs up, but it feels like it springs up from the center of my body and just goes boom. What the hell is that? You can't see anything, so it doesn't feel. It doesn't. I just look like an idiot, but it's real for me. It's just like, what the hell is that? What flow of whatever is that? What am I accessing there? What it it feels like the closest thought I had was to like, is it what is it where your that disease where basically takes a hold of your is it your autonomous nervous system or something like that? Basically, that's the thing where it's just like you. This is almost like the inverse of that or something where I'm I don't know I'm somehow able to somewhat control or at least excite maybe my central nervous system or maybe or some part of the nervous system because it just feels like I'm like exciting nerve endings, but it doesn't feel surface. It feels in me. Sorry, I'm just going on a rant here, but I've got to take that down to try and figure that out because it just feels weird. It's interesting. What is that? Does everybody else feel that, or am I alone on an island here? What is that? Can that be conceptualized as information? I don't think I get any knowledge from it other than I just feel like a freaking electronic transformer is just got shoved up my behind or something. Screw off, PJ. Anyway, so riddle me that, Tors. Tell me what that is when I can do this, and it just feels like I'm freaking buzzing like a. Other than that, yeah, the flow of information through human beings is. It's a. It's a battle won, and the eventual war lost of localization of entropy effects. So, thank you very much. See if I got one more in me here. Okay. All right. Next up on the list in this corner, Michael I. Norton. Michael Norton is the Harold M. Brearley Professor of Business Administration. Haven't had a lot of business admin. I don't even have to look at the rest of the question because I got a degree in business, so this is going to be smooth sailing. Harold M. Brearley, Professor of Business Administration and Director of Research at Director of Research at Harvard Business School. Business School. Co-author with Elizabeth Dunn of Happy Money. All right. Now that I've thoroughly botched that, apologies, Michael Norton. Michael Norton's last question is, why do humans behave as though what can be known is finite? I'm very tempted to take issue with your question. I don't know if I agree with the premise. How would we define that? How do we determine that? How would you set up a test to determine if humans behave as though what can be known is infinite, or behave as though what can be known as finite, as finite or infinite? Like, how? Either way, humans have always been finite. We only know finite in our. We don't have any experience of infinite, other than maybe some mathematicians can write it down on pieces of paper and have weird conceptualizations of it. So maybe it could just be experience. To take your question at face value, it could just be experience. Everything that we've ever done has been finite. So why would we behave in a way that is unrelated to everything that we've ever experienced throughout all of time? Okay. Another related point to that. It's very related, but it's like the idea of the infinite, while maybe not new, is probably at least maybe somewhat new. I mean, infinite didn't come around. I mean, well, conceptually, maybe could you have had a deity that was called infinite in certain respects? Maybe do you get, I don't know when you got infinities with math, probably not till after you got zero, and then probably way after that. But the concept, I think, of infinity is in of itself kind of a late comer to the party. It's it reminds me of this thought I have about like doubt, or maybe like pondering. It's like, why aren't people more skeptical, or more kind of like the reserved judgment and get more facts and stuff? It's like, well, because for most of our history, you would have been killed by a frickin' panther who would have grabbed you off the rocks if you're sitting there going like this all day. It's like doubt is a luxury of, like prolonged safety and prolonged whatever, all the, in and in a similar way, maybe the concept of the infinite is a luxury of not always having to chase after the finite, or have to chase after something that, it's like if you're trying to feed yourself all day, you don't have a chance to contemplate the idea that there might be an infinite number of things to eat all day. It's like, I don't know. And I'm still not sure that I agree with your. With the conceptualization of that question. I mean, I don't know how you would. How? What's bringing you to think that way? Director of Research, Harvard Business School, happy, money. I don't know where you're coming from when you're saying this, so it's well. That's I don't know where anyone's coming from when anybody says this. That's part of the challenge. Answering everything perfectly and correctly while having very limited information on what this question means, other than the letters and the words that make up the question. Uh, I'm really struggling with how would you tell the difference? If humans if humans thought, okay, there's an infinite amount of knowledge to to be attained. If they thought that way, there is still a finite amount of time to explore it, to find it, and a finite amount of things to do with that knowledge. And not only finite, but when you talk about actionable knowledge and knowledge that can increase, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about like reproductive fitness, right? So increase the number and quantity of whatever of the offsprings. Even if there's infinite things to learn, there's a vanishingly, infinitely small subset, which is, I guess, still infinite, but let's not get into that, number of things that, a subset of the things that are to be learned that would help you in, procreation and all that kind of stuff. So it's like you're like, oh, I've got a map that's just infinitely big and I can explore everywhere. Yeah, but I got 9 minutes to explore it, so it doesn't matter that it's infinitely big. So how is it going to change my behavior? This map is infinitely big and I got 9 minutes to look at it versus it's just big, but I can see the borders. How are you differentiating behavior that you can tell that people are behaving as though they think what can be known as infinite versus finite? I don't understand how. I can't get inside your mind to think how you're thinking that way. I'm still going to answer this perfectly, and I think I already have. Let's tear it apart and look at it from another way. If humans behaved as though they thought what can be known is infinite, how would they behave? You're still localized. Even in infinity, a human is localized in that infinity. They got to do what they got to do. They got to figure out how to swim. They got to figure out what the water is that they're in. I don't know that if I agree. I mean, I get that all these questions aren't. You can't just translate them all readily into math. I mean, one of the questions was I equals we. That probably is the easiest one to put into math. Anyway, you can't math these all out, but I'm just having a hard time understanding. Because I don't know how you would I don't know how you would test for that and discriminate between. Hmm. I just feel like I'm coming back to, well, okay. Think about it this way. Do humans behave as though, okay, so if I behaved as though what could be known is finite, I would say, okay, well, there's stuff out there. I can see the borders. I can see the edges. Oh, okay. Wait. Now I'm thinking about it in a game context. Done a lot of staring off in the distance. I don't have a good idea. I'm having a hard time agreeing with the question, or conceptualizing it in a way that I can bifurcate it, interrogate it, coagulate it. Think of like physicists, mathematicians, people at the, researching stuff at the very edge of what we know, and they're trying to peer into the unknown, and, you know, they're working through that. I mean, I don't know if it makes a pragmatically it would make a difference because, excuse me, you're still trying to take what is in the known and then find the unknown from the known. Excuse me. So it's like you're just trying to get to the next level. So, but I'm also thinking like from a very cognitive uh, psychological level, like a deep psychological thing. It's like I I I'm wondering if the idea of the infinite in terms of what can be known if we just had we were conceptualizing that we were in this universe, and it's an infinity of exploration. We would never get to the end of it. I wonder if that just might be self-defeating, if just like psychologically that could be so actually traumatizing that okay, that because we are purpose seeking beings, and localized purpose manifests itself as goals, as kind of like places to get on a map, cognitively, metaphorically, like, oh, we get there, and that we do that because of that, and then we get to the next place, you know, doesn't that just lose meaning in a conceptualization of infinity everywhere? What's the purpose of goals? What's the purpose of the next step if there's always a next step everywhere? And you know, I guess conceptually for me, it seems so Sartre. It seems so existentialist, you know. It's just like, oh yeah, we climbed five more flights of steps today up the mountain. We only have an infinity more to go. It's like, I mean, that seems like a turnoff at the lowest levels of kind of cognition of the murky waters between consciousness and unconsciousness, that kind of just like urge or feel or something like that substructure of the how we build a model of the world. It's like if we just built it like it's just ever expanding everywhere, I think that would be more so than even unheralded in any particular experience that we've ever had before in the world, because we've never experienced an infinity before. But even just like conceptually depressing, and just like, oh, wherever we go, there's just an infinity more to go. It's almost like there's no progress. There's no it makes pointless the idea of goals, because this is like it would be the actual 1 second, excuse me, manifestation of I'm gonna have to end this because I lost my camera and I'm not gonna fix it right now, so I can just talk. And what I was gonna say is, it sounds like the psychological manifestation of, what is it, Zeno's paradox, where it's just like, in order to get anywhere, you'll never get anywhere, because in order to get anywhere, you have to get halfway there, and in order to get halfway there, you got to get a quarter of the way there, and a quarter of the way there, you got to get an eighth of the way there, and you'll never get anywhere. It may just be like the psychological manifestation of Zeno's paradox is what is pointing us away from conceptualizing the infinite. Yep. That is your answer, Michael Norton. And thank you for that interesting question. And with that, I think I'm going to end this because I've lost my camera. And I'm not in a technical mood right now. So thank you all of me for joining me. And we'll see you next time. Kia sorento.